Hey, I want to take some time today to address a question that came up quite a bit during the live chat last night. Now, before I go on here, I want to tell everyone I'm going to be looking at some notes down here throughout this little speech I'm giving, because I tried to do it without any notes a minute ago, and it was so rambly and all over the place, and I kept getting distracted. By the time I watched it back, even I couldn't figure out what the fuck I was trying to say. So I was like, maybe I need some notes for this one. So I got some notes down here. Well, the topic I'm wanting to talk about today is everyone kept asking me, did I see the shooting in Atlanta where Rayshard Brooks, I believe his name is, was shot by police officers and then later died after a confrontation in a drive-thru. The people were asking me, have you seen it? What do you think? They're going to riot again. You know, people are rioting over this, and the police have, killed another innocent black man, kind of a question. Well, after watching the video last night, I kept having to say, I can't give you a real opinion because I haven't seen anything about it. I've been busy going native like Jane Goodall with the hippies up in Seattle for the last couple of days, trying to find out what's going on up there and if Antifa had taken over. So I actually took some time now to watch the video, and I've actually watched it probably 20 times. It's a horrible video. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's sad from many different perspectives. But I am going to say right now, and, I've spent the last few days pissing off hypocrites and assholes, so there's no reason for me to stop now. I'm going to say that in this case, this Rayshard Brooks is no George Floyd. And when I say that, I'm not saying, oh, he's not as good a person as George Floyd was. Because I don't even know that George Floyd was a good person. Never met the man. And I've never met Rayshard Brooks. He might have been a church deacon who volunteered with, pets for vets after, work every day or something. They could have either one been angels or devils for all I know. I'm not talking about them as people. I think we try to deify the victims too often in these things when they don't deserve that. We should be dealing with the situation. And that's what I'm talking about here. The situations were totally different between George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks. So I want to go over here why they're different. Like I said, two very different situations. If you look at just the arrest period, the actual confrontation with police, with Floyd, there was no reason for police to even be involved, to even be there. He was accused of possibly passing a counterfeit $20 bill. Police don't need to respond to that like it's an emergency. And if they do respond, all they do is they seize the $20 bill. They get the name of the person passing it. They get the information the person is being passed to. They turn it over to a different agency to investigate. Because that's not even a police issue. That's a federal issue. And, that's all that should have happened there. The only reason that they would even show up and try to get in the middle of it is, they wanted to wave their dicks around. Especially the Asian cop. I guess he felt the need to wave his dick around, maybe show people that maybe the stereotypes aren't true, or maybe show them they are and he doesn't care. I don't know. But like I said, no reason for the cops to even be there. With Brooks, totally different. He is passed out in a drive-thru, either drunk or high off his ass in a car. That's DUI. That's not like a minor traffic thing. I don't think cops should be enforcing like speed limits, stop signs, stuff like that. I think that should be left to some sort of other manner. But this is a potentially deadly act. This is a violent act, DUI. You are showing great disregard for the safety of the community. People in the community are in danger because of your actions, whether they're standing on a sidewalk or driving in the opposite lane. The fact that you decided to get impaired into a car, one of the most deadly weapons you can possess, shows that you need intervention right there. The police have every right to intervene. So when it comes to, did the police even have a right to be there under Floyd? No, not really. And under Brooks, yes, definitely. Now, if you look at reasons to arrest also, with Floyd, the only possible thing they could have come up with to arrest him for was how he reacted to them doing something they had no right to do, which was try to arrest him for that. Like, oh, you resisted arrest when we unlawfully tried to arrest you. That's bullshit. And that's the conditions Floyd were under right there. That's the case for Floyd. Now, when you look at Brooks, he had every reason to be arrested. drunk driving, driving under the influence, whatever you want to call it. He was a danger to people around him. And here's another thing. During the arrest, the Floyd officers were just assholes. You can see on the tape. Asshole, asshole, asshole. Flagrant disregard for the rights of a citizen. Flagrant disregard for his well-being. Being rude to onlookers who were trying to persuade them to quit being assholes. Threatening to mace people that were observing. Just being total dicks. Whereas the officers in the Brooks case were being very polite. Were never condescending. Were never escalating the situation at all. They were being professional, polite, etc. all the way through. Never violating anyone's rights, never treating anyone as a lesser. They were very respectful, actually. So, big difference there. They had every right to be arresting him just for his actions, not for the way he reacted to them. There's a big difference there. Also, in the Floyd video, if you notice, officers continued to disregard his safety, continued to be violent thugs, even after he was handcuffed on the ground, no threat to anyone. Continued to be dicks. Flagrant disregard for his rights, his safety, just being assholes out of their own hubris, thinking they could do whatever they wanted to and get away with it. At least that's the impression you get watching the tape. In the Brooks case, they never became violent with him until he actually started physically fighting them. And I'm not talking just like, oh, don't do that. Ow, that hurts. Let me up. No, not that. Physically fighting with them as far as grabbing one of their tasers and taking it from them. And then running and trying to shoot one of the officers with the taser. So that was the level of violence all the way through. It was started by Brooks. It was escalated by Brooks. When he pulled that trick, when he stole the taser. Escalate. When he started fighting, escalation. When he stole the taser, escalation. When he fired the taser, escalation. He had the first 3 steps in that escalation. The fourth and final step was the officer shooting him. And was he justified in shooting him? Well, we'll talk about that here in a second. But the Floyd officers, like I said, they acted in a cold and calculated manner out of their own hubris, feeling they were above the law and they could treat this person however they wanted. The officers in the Brooks case did everything by the book all the way up until that last point where he was shot. Also, the officers for Floyd, did you ever see them show any remorse? Did you ever see them show any sympathy? The officer that shot Brooks, first thing he says when you see the tape from the police department, how is he? Oh my God. You know, he was concerned for the person that he shot. He was clearly shaken up. Those officers in the Floyd case, they didn't look shaken up. You know, they're kneeling there with their hands and on their hips and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they just didn't seem concerned at all. This guy was very concerned. Now, I know a lot of people are mad because they're like, oh, the black officer that showed up, the commanding officer, he didn't seem concerned about the guy that was shot at all. Well, that's his job at that point right there. He's trying to console an employee. I'm sure when it was different, when he was like, talking to the hospital and talking to everything else, he was very concerned about the guy got shot, I'm betting. But, you know, when you're talking to the person who's all distraught about this, you're like, nah, calm down, we're worried about you, blah, blah, blah. That's just him with him doing his job. So, can't, you know, complain about him too much. So, as you can see here, the situations are totally different. George Floyd, they had no reason to intervene. They had no reason to arrest him. They violated his rights and with disregard to his safety for an extended period of time and then showed no remorse after he was dead. This guy did his job well, responded to a situation where, this cop in the Brooks situation. In the Brooks situation, the police responded when they should. They treated him with respect and dignity like they should. They tried to arrest him for DUI like they should. And then he escalated the situation. So totally different. So now I want to talk about, well, do I think that the guy who shot, the police officer that shot Brooks, is as much a murderer as the people who killed George Floyd? I don't think he's a murderer at all. That wasn't murder. He was shooting a fleeing person who had violently attacked him and a fellow officer, then tried to use a weapon against a fellow officer. Different circumstances. Now, do I think he was justified in shooting in that case? No, not at all. You got a drunk perp who grabbed the taser, tried to fire it, is trying to run away. He's not trying to come back at you or trying to take advantage of the situation. He's trying to get away. You've got his ID. You've got his car. You know, you've got everything you need to know to get him later. Where's he going to go? You know, so get him later. It didn't seem like he posed a threat to the people in society because you took his weapon away, his car. The taser, he'd already fired it. Plus, even taser's not a deadly weapon. Police use in court all the time. Hey, this is not deadly force, it's a taser. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say you have a deadly weapon when you say it's not a deadly weapon in your own cases. So, did he make a bad decision? Yes. Is he a murderer? No. Should he be fired? Probably. Not because he did something willfully or with malice, etc., just because maybe he makes bad decisions under stress. This might have been the first time he'd ever been in a really stressful situation. He made a really bad decision that cost someone their lives. There was no reason to really shoot that guy. I can't imagine most of us in that situation would have shot the guy running away. Especially not if we had his car right here. It'd be like in a road rage incident if you were along the road changing a tire and someone gets off the road and starts bitching at you and threatening you, and you know, you get into a scuffle and then he runs away. You wouldn't shoot him. You know, you'd be like, his car's right here. Yeah, where's he gonna fucking go? So I don't think they were justified shooting Brooks, but I don't think they were acting as criminals when they did. I think one cop made a bad decision in a very stressful situation, which goes to show maybe he's not suited to be a police officer. If we had police officers only dealing with situations like this and not all the other things that they have to do that they are not qualified to do, like intervening during mental health stuff and marriage counseling and all this other stuff that they shouldn't be doing, and they were just doing stuff like this, well, then maybe they'd be able to be better trained. We'd need less officers. We could be pickier about who we chose, and we can have officers that don't make bad decisions during times like this. But to me, that's the big difference here. In the Floyd case, these officers were just criminals. And they felt that they were above the law, and they felt they didn't have to respect someone. In the Brooks case, opposite. Did his job perfectly up until the part where he, after someone else escalated the situation, made a bad decision under stress. So not the same thing. So for all the people out there who want to riot over this, I would suggest you not. Because here's the thing. When you want to point out that there's injustice and you want to riot, civil disobedience, whatever, I would say peacefully protest and maybe engage in some peaceful civil disobedience. That's the way to do it. But whatever you choose to do, make sure the cause is just. Because cops are right more often than they're wrong. Just deal with the times they're wrong. If you start rioting or even just, marching after every time they do something when they're right or when it's not definitely an injustice, it starts to look like all you want to do is riot. And everything else doesn't matter. It's just an excuse. So be more selective about what you choose to be pissed off about. Be pissed off about systemic racism in law enforcement. In fact, be pissed off about it enough to pay attention that it's got more to it than just race. It's not just black people that police treat like this. I lived in a trailer park in West Virginia a portion of my life. I'll tell you, police treat people in trailer parks that are white in West Virginia about like they treat people in the inner cities that are black nowadays. It's not about just the color of your skin. Of course, yes, there is systemic racism in our society, but when it comes to police, it's about more than that. It's about the fact that they feel they are above the law, that they can treat anyone that they see as lesser any way they want and they can get away with it. So be selective about when you pop off, I guess we should say, because if you start doing it all the time, like I said, it starts to look like you're as much the problem as the police, and we don't want that.